to discuss his service to our great country. If you thought you knew a thing or two about the Navy, from the likes of Richard Gere in An Officer and a Gentleman, Tom Cruise from Top Gun, Denzel Washington from Crimson Tide, or Alec, don't shoot me bro, Baldwin from The Hunt for Red October, well, you ain't seen nothing yet. Please join me in a warm welcome for Tom Weis, Lieutenant, United States Navy, separate. Okay, he was discharged. Toastmaster Tom Weis.
The only reason I agreed to give this speech today is because you want me at that lectern. You need me at that lectern. Ladies and gentlemen, fellow Toastmasters, members of the footwork head table. Deep down in places you don't like to talk about, there are some truths. You know the Thais Marines are a wholly owned subsidiary of the United States Navy. But we are the Uber service has taken anywhere in the world we want to go to flight. Carson's Air Force. We know that they spend way too much money on their golf courses, their clubs, their country clubs, their lodging. Their bases are practically resorts. If they have any money left over at the end of the construction process, they might go on a runway or two and possibly a hangar. And let's hear about Carlos and his army, and Jeff's army, and Roy's army, that, hey, we do more before 9 a.m. than most people do all day. Well, that's cute. 5 a.m. when they're up for their morning jog. The Navy's mid-watch section is just coming off duty for the night, so that's great. All ribbing aside, we do all fight as one team. We are brothers and sisters in arms. And we are here for Team America. We are here for the absolute best interests of the country. George Orwell wrote in Animal Farm that everyone's equal, just some are more equal than others. Well, I posit that veterans, we're all normal. We're just a different kind of normal. And it's taken a lot of expensive training, travel, and equipment to get us that way. But speaking of a different kind of normal, the Navy, we have a certain bipolarity, if you will. And not to denigrate anybody that's truly bipolar, but the Earth has two poles, the North Pole and the South Pole, and in between those two poles is an awful lot of water. People join the Navy to go see the world, and then they quickly realize that most of it is wet. Also, from a bipolar point of view, in the military, you run two extremes. You tend to go from the extremely mundane to the incredibly intense. There's long watches, there's drills, there's training, there's things where you're just like, is this ever going to end? And that shifts into incredible moments of intensity with things that the civilian population probably would never see. There's things you do out at sea, there's missile launches, there's gun shoots, there's possible action, there's interdiction of other vessels, and it is incredibly intense, and it can be very taxing on people. Also, from a bipolar perspective, you're expected to have maximum performance when on duty, when at work. But when you're in port, you're also expected to have maximum party. But on both ends of the spectrum, you're not allowed to make mistakes. When you're performing at work, you're expected to do everything right all the time, because if you don't, people get hurt. When you're in port, when you're ashore, the expectation is that you're going to party it up with everyone else when you have a big old time, until you color outside the lines, and then something gets written up and things are done. It's unfortunately a very unforgiving environment. In the Navy, we also put the fun in dysfunctional. We have 250 years of tradition unfettered by progress. And what do I mean by that? There are some traditions, there are some ways of doing things that quite honestly don't make a bit of sense. The ship you see in front of you is the USS Fitzgerald. That's where I spent most of my time. That's an Aegis-class destroyer. It's the most commonly used ship in the Navy, used for all sorts of missions. We knocked down Scuds, you can knock down airplanes, you can take out submarines, take out surface ships, and you can reach out and touch someone with a Tomahawk cruise missile coming out of the decks of those ships. Millions upon millions, and even billions of dollars was spent to make that thing stealthy and hard to detect on a radar. There's angular shapes on it to bounce back radar waves away from the emitter. There's special materials put on it to keep it from being detected. And then they went and hung a bell on the front of it. Because for the last 250 years, there's a big brass bell on every Navy ship that they ring it in the fog, and they ring the bell just because they can. A big brass bell is one heck of a radar reflector. If you've ever seen the metal ball on the top of a sailboat, that's there to reflect the radar energy so you don't get driven over by a freighter ship or a cargo ship or something like that. So these are some of the dysfunctional things that happen. And also, as a surface warfare officer, that's the officer professional rank, or especially for working on ships. SWOs eat their young. So when I was talking about maximum performance of duty, if you mess up, if you do anything wrong, they will eat you. You will get spit out, and it's unfortunately a brutally competitive environment to be in. I had something very unique about working on the ship. I was on its original crew. I was a plank owner. I was part of that ship for over a year before it came out of the shipyards in Bath, Maine. I was able to sail over to San Diego and had a really, really good time working on that ship. It was an incredible experience. We had that new ship smell, kind of like a new car smell, except it smells a lot like paint and deck epoxy. It's kind of like it's a different kind of a new smell. But also being part of this ship, there's a difference between serving in the peacetime Navy, which I did, 92 to 97, pardon me, got out in 97, and the folks that have fought in the last 20 years of warfare. He reflected on a story of people that come back with the rattled and addled brains and bodies back from war. It's brutal. War is hell. But also, there are all too many tragedies in the peacetime military, training accidents and things that happen where people do die. And that unforgiving nature of being in the military can bite just as hard in peacetime as it can in war. I have two very distinct memories from working on this ship. There was a radioman that worked for me. Blake's father was a radioman. And after I left the Navy and left the ship, about a year later, he transferred to the Pentagon to go work, advancing his career. Plane flew into his office. Wow. Radioman second class Kevin Wayne Yoakum is a bridge name from in Lake Charles, Louisiana. Also, that ship 3 years ago, operating outside of Tokyo Harbor, had a freighter crash into it. If you notice that big bulb on the front of the ship, that's the sonar dome. Most freighter ships have another big bulb, and it's used to reduce water resistance going through the water. Right below the bridge in the middle of the ship is where the bulb of that ship went into that boat, that ship. When you saw it, there wasn't that much visible damage from the top, except the big gash in the hull where water flooded in, and they had to shut the hatch on 7 sailors below deck. That was at a time of peace. What we thought was peace. So, for all those besides myself that have served, both in peacetime and war, thank you for your service. I got off easy, I had a great time. Not everyone did. Thank you very much.